On behalf of Plex Council, I give you a warm welcome for this interesting webinar on how we could use shared resource services, CFO services for expanding our business operations. Plex Council is a group of SMEs, and when you are thinking of growing bigger, you require professional support. We have Mr. Sunil Pandey from Arth Capital, who's going to give us his guidance. Before that, I would like to invite Mr. Dhruv Sayani. As you are all aware, Dhruv is the Plex Council panel chairman for consumer and commercial products, and he's also a director with Crystal Plastics and Metallizing Private Limited. I would request Dhruv to kindly give the welcome address. Dhruvji, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dhawan. Firstly, it's a pleasure to be on this panel today and to attend this webinar. I'd like to begin by extending a warm welcome to all the participants of the webinar. It is indeed my pleasure to have all of you with us today for the webinar on the CFO services for SMEs with an ambition for growth plans. And of course, this webinar is organized by the Plastic Export Promotion Council of India, which is the Plex Council, in association with Falcon Business Energizers. Friends, small and medium enterprises sectors have emerged as a highly vibrant and dynamic sector of the Indian economy over the last several decades. And SMEs complement the large industries as an ancillary unit, and this sector contributes enormously to the socio-economic development of the country. The plastic industry stakeholders recently had a meeting with our dynamic Commerce Minister, Shri Piyush Goyal, who said that the MSMEs are a key to triple plastic industry outputs and double the employment in the next 5 years. We all have been closely following the government's vision for the growth of MSMEs. Referring to the MSMEs, our minister also mentioned that we all need to ensure that MSMEs get a short supply of raw materials to compete and grow, and get maximum support from all stakeholders towards MSMEs as they generate huge employment and support millions of livelihoods. Our Commerce Minister, Shri Piyush Goyal, has further asked the plastic manufacturing industry to aim to increase their turnover to 10 lakh crores from 3 lakh crores in the next 5 years. The government has set a target for the country to become a 5 trillion economy by financial year 2025, and the SMEs will play a critical role in the growth of this journey. As one of the World Bank reports stated, access to finance is a key constraint for the SME growth, and it is the second most cited obstacle faced by SMEs in growing their business in emerging markets and developing countries. The SMEs wish to achieve sustainable, scalable, and ambitious growth with solid financial foundation, but they lack in 3 things, and these are 3 most important things I'd like to stress upon, which is team, time, and resources. And they lack in planning of accurate forecasts and budgets to convert key assumptions into net profits. To help SME owners to focus on their business rather than having stress on financial management is the need of the hour. And therefore, we're glad to have today CS Sunil Pandey with us to deliberate on the subject and guide participants on how to plan for growth in your company. Challenges in achieving the growth, and he will also be discussing on the role of a CFO in achieving 10x growth and other CFO services for your companies. So I want all the participants to take maximum benefit from this session, because we have a lot to learn as MSME companies and SME companies to get our businesses in order with such services. And I think we live in a dynamic world where such additional services help us not only to scale our operations, but to even expand beyond our bandwidth. Once again, we welcome all the participants to this webinar and request everyone to take maximum advantage of the knowledge of our speaker. We are sure that today's webinar will be helpful to all our participants. Thank you, and over to the moderator for further proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. Sayani. Friends, जैसे आप लोग जानते हो, जब हम लोग अपनी कंपनीज को बड़ा कर रहे हैं, ज़्यादातर हमारा काम अपने बिजनेस में लगा रहता है और हम लोग ये नहीं देख पाते कि फाइनेंशियल मैनेजमेंट और कंट्रोल कैसे होगा, कौन करेगा, एटसेट्रा एटसेट्रा। और प्रोफेशनल्स अब अवेलेबल हैं जो हमको गाइड कर सकते हैं कि आप अपने बिजनेस को कैसे बड़ा कर सकते हो। हम लोग अपने बिजनेस पे ध्यान देंगे और प्रोफेशनल्स हमारे फाइनेंशियल मैटर्स को पे ध्यान देंगे। मैं सुनील पांडे जी से रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि आप इस सेमिनार को आगे बढ़ाएं और लोगों को गाइड करें कि हम कैसे अपने बिजनेस को बड़ा कर सकते हैं। And अगर if anybody has any questions, आप share कर सकते हैं और हम लोग आपके questions का answer करेंगे. Over to you, Mr. Pandey.
Thank you, Surajji, and thanks, Dhruv. I'm extremely thankful to Surajji and PLEXCONNECT also for giving me this opportunity of sharing my experiences with you all. So, Jai Hind, Namaskar. And I should be starting because for this pandemic thing, one after another kind of fear in the market. So I should be starting with the prayer, which we all know. So Sarve Bhavantu Sukhna, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kasyit Duk Bhag Bhave. So friends, extremely happy and मैं CFO रहा हूँ कॉर्पोरेट्स में मेरा 20 साल का एक्सपीरियंस है और 2 दशकों के एक्सपीरियंस के बाद बिजनेस बिल्डिंग, CFO साइड, फाइनेंस, फंड रेजिंग, कंट्रोल, वो सारे एक्सपीरियंसेस के बाद अब 4 साल से हमारी संस्था है अर्थ कैपिटल, जिसके थ्रू मैं CFO सर्विसेज देता हूँ या बोर्ड एडवाइजर बन के कंपनियों के साथ काम करता हूँ, मोस्टली SMEs के साथ काम करता हूँ. तो आज का डिस्कशन हमारा मोस्टली ऐसा है बिकॉज आई एम फ्रॉम लखनऊ, तो उसी अंदाज में कि मैं जो उड़ता बिछाता हूँ, आओ वही गजल तुम्हें सुनाता हूँ. So let's start with the presentation I have for you. I'm bringing it on. One second. So hope you are able to see this.
Hanji, do SMEs require CFOs? That is the title. Yeah.
Yeah. So straight away to the topic. And probably before discussing do SMEs require CFOs, let me also define who is a CFO. So most of you might be aware of this term because CEO is very, very commonly prevalent name in the market, and eventually most of the people understand CFO terminology, which is Chief Finance Officer, Chief Financial Officer. But in my experience, very few in SME know and understand what this CFO does for the company. So for most of them, it is mostly around finance, accounts, tax, audit, control. And believe me, this is 20-30%, not more than 40% of a CFO job. So that may be sounding astonishing for you because we have been living in a ecosystem where generally a chartered accountant is seen to assume this CFO position in companies, and chartered accountants are stamped as auditor, people taking care of taxation, finance, and other things. But believe me, CFO, a mature, good quality CFO is a strategic partner to promoter and HODs. He helps companies to have a sustainable growth. So what does sustainable growth means? Growth which is sustainable for long term. So growth in turnover, growth in profit, and growth in valuation also. So there are 2 things which I will be discussing and which can help you differentiating from a regular chartered accountant. Generally in SMEs, CFOs are not designated, but even in SMEs which are listed, designated CFOs, they are mostly working around compliances. So the first thing first, by introducing this word CFO, I'm introducing a person who is well experienced, who has been CFO in corporate. So he's not coming from a general compliance practice background. And he can be seen as strategic partner. So by strategic partner means a person working along with the partner for even increasing revenue also. So profit, of course, is a function of revenue and cost also. So cost control, cost management, of course, CFO has, you all know and understand, they have key role to play. But even in increasing revenue and revenue that fetches profit and cash realized profit, that becomes the one of the main contribution of CFO to the organization for long-term and sustainable growth. Probably we should understand first thing first that today we will be discussing CFO, which is only 30% on all the things we understand around a CFO. Now the question comes, do SME require CFOs? In my experience, all SME owners, all promoters require a person. Ideally, he should have been his brother, and he or she should have been brother or sister. CA with the corporate experience, and the best thing is that if he has been CFO earlier, it would be of great value to the person. So the answer is yes, all promoters require high quality CFOs in their organization by side of the promoter, by side of the HODs. But the gap is that high quality and high cost, most of the time it goes in parallel. ये सारे बड़ी कंपनियों के पास ही होते हैं, और कंपनियां बड़ी ही इसीलिए होती हैं, जैसे ध्रुव जी ने बोला ना, पीपल, टाइम एंड रिसोर्सेज, तो एंड पीपल, प्रोसेस, स्ट्रैटेजी, ये हर एग्जीक्यूशन का कोर है. अगर हम अपने लोग अच्छे चुने, अच्छे लोगों के साथ कंपनियां बिल्ड बनाएं, और कई बार तो कंपनी बिल्ड करने का मतलब ही अच्छी टीम बिल्ड करना होता है. सो आप देखेंगे जनरली अच्छे CFOs अच्छी कंपनियों में होते हैं, और इसका उल्टा मतलब भी है. यू हैव गुड पीपल एंड देन दोज गुड पीपल क्रिएट गुड कंपनी एंड इट लास्ट फॉर लॉन्ग. सो CFOs की रिक्वायरमेंट और SMEs, जैसा हम सब जानते हैं, तकरीबन 6 करोड़ MSMEs हैं हमारी कंट्री में, और डेटा इतना डाइवर्जेंट है. मतलब एक तरफ तो 6.5 करोड़ MSMEs हैं, और दूसरी तरफ एक दशक के एफर्ट के बाद भी केवल 650 कंपनियां लिस्ट हो पाई हैं SME प्लेटफॉर्म. सो ये गैप है, और ये जो गैप है ट्रांसपेरेंसी का, ये गैप है ग्रोथ का, डिस्क्लोजर्स का, वहां CFOs की रिक्वायरमेंट भी है, और CFOs का बड़ा बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट रोल है. और मेरा ऐसा समझना है कि एक कंपनी में अगर 3-4 लोग, सीनियर लोग अच्छे काम करें, तो वो कंपनी तेजी से ग्रोथ पाथ पे जा सकती है. और पर्टिकुलरली आपकी इंडस्ट्री में, जो प्लास्टिक इंडस्ट्री है, जहां अभी बताया ध्रुव ने कि 3 टाइम्स क्वांटिटी ग्रोथ, मतलब आप समझ रहे हैं, हम 10 बिलियन के आसपास बैठे हुए हैं, और 13 बिलियन एक्सपोर्ट हमें दिख रहा है. मैं एक्सपोर्ट की बात कर रहा हूं केवल. और जो एम्बिशन है वो 3-4 साल में इसको डबल करने की है. एटलीस्ट $25 बिलियन की एक्सपोर्ट की बात हम कर रहे हैं. सो देयर इज ह्यूमंगस ग्रोथ पॉसिबल, बट वो ग्रोथ हमारे पास आए और वो सस्टेनेबल हो, उसके लिए आज का डिस्कशन है. और वहां मुझे ऐसा लगता है, बिकॉज ऑफ माय एक्सपीरियंस, CFO एक अहम व्यक्ति है जो आपके साइड पे होना चाहिए. अब वो कैसे होगा, CFOs की सैलरी हम अफोर्ड कर पाएंगे, सैलरी के अगेंस्ट में कोई दूसरे ऑप्शन है, वही सब आज का डिस्कशन है. सो फर्स्ट पार्ट है अवेलेबिलिटी. आप देखेंगे ज्यादातर हाई क्वालिटी CFOs आर कंसंट्रेटेड इन मेट्रोज. सो दिल्ली, बॉम्बे, पुणे, बैंगलोर, बड़ी जगहों पे इनका कंसंट्रेशन है, बिकॉज लाइफ की एक जर्नी, CAs, MBAs, सबका कलमिनेशन है. सबको मेट्रो जाना था और मेट्रो आए, और यहाँ पे दूसरी बड़ी कंपनियों हैं, इकोसिस्टम है, एक कंपनी से दूसरी कंपनी मूव कर सकते हैं. और यही वजह है कि हमारा देश, जो कि गांवों का देश है, Tier 2 शहरों का देश है, वहां पे Tier 2 एंड Tier 3 सिटीज पे हाई क्वालिटी CFOs की अवेलेबिलिटी नहीं है. तो दैट बिकम्स वन पॉइंट, जो कि ये गैप की तरफ इशारा करता है कि चाहिए, मतलब एक तरफ तो 6 करोड़ MSMEs हैं, और उनको ये चाहिए भी, तो फिर ये अवेलेबल क्यों नहीं है? उनमें से एक बात तो ये है कि मोस्टली गुड क्वालिटी CFOs आर इन मेट्रोज, टियर 2 टियर 3 सिटीज में नहीं है, कम है। दूसरा अफोर्डेबिलिटी, ऑफ कोर्स एक प्रोफेशनल एस्पिरेशन की वजह से CAs MBAs और जो गुड क्वालिटी CFOs हैं वो बड़ी कंपनियों के साथ रहते हैं, उनके 6 डिजिट पैकेजेस होते हैं, 7 डिजिट पैकेजेस होते हैं एनुअल। तो वो अफोर्डेबिलिटी इन 6 करोड़ MSMEs को किस फॉर्मेट में मिले, अभी नहीं मिल रही है, किस फॉर्मेट में मिले, वो एक विषय है जो आज हम डिस्कस करने वाले हैं। और तीसरा बड़ा पॉइंट है, कई कंपनियां जो 300 से 500 करोड़ रुपए के ब्रैकेट में है वो हमेशा इस प्रश्न से जूझती रहती हैं कि उनको गुड क्वालिटी CFOs लेना है किसी कॉस्ट पे, या एक 100 करोड़ रुपए का टर्नओवर या कुछ और ग्रोथ या प्रॉफिट ग्रोथ लेने के बाद वो लेना है। तो वो जो एक चिकन का मामला है कि उस साइकिल को कैसे, मतलब उस प्रॉब्लम को कैसे सॉल्व किया जाए, तो उसमें गोल्डन प्रपोजिशन ये है, और आप बहुत सारी दूसरी मैनेजमेंट बुक्स और इंटरनेट पे भी देखेंगे कि हमेशा इस सिचुएशन को सॉल्व करने के लिए पहले आदमी फिर काम। सो जो अगला ग्रोथ होएगा वो आदमी लेने के बाद ही होएगा। तो ऐसे कुछ प्रश्न हैं जो हम आज लेंगे और डिस्कस करेंगे कि SMEs को CFOs की रिक्वायरमेंट है, उनकी अवेलेबिलिटी, अफोर्डेबिलिटी एक प्रश्न है जो SMEs को सॉल्व करना है, और कैसे ये CFO सर्विसेज उस प्रश्न को सॉल्व कर पाती है। एंड CFO सर्विसेज ये प्रश्न को सॉल्व करने में सक्षम है, कर रही है। हम लोग अक्रॉस इंडिया काम कर रहे हैं, और मैं ही नहीं, केवल अर्थ कैपिटल ही नहीं, दूसरी और संस्थाएं भी हैं जो CFO सर्विसेज में काम कर रही हैं और बहुत सक्सेसफुली काम कर रही हैं। नाउ let us also understand
Sunil ji, a lot of people are from South India and East India.
Oh, sorry.
So make a mix of more English than less English. Okay.
Okay, great. So friends, before we proceed on, we should also understand some perspective from CFO side. So you have always been running your business, developing your people, creating better opportunity for your organizations. How a person like me who has been CFO in bigger corporates and now doing CFO services for last 4 years, how I see and what is my experience with SMEs vis-a-vis CFO services. So first thing first, जो हमारा whatever system and accounting things we have, if I rate on the scale of 10, I have not been successful in giving any SME in my experience beyond 4, and there are reasons to it. So probably the structure is not in place, and that becomes the main cause of financial mismanagement or underperformance financially, or cash flow problems, which is a regular feature in the company. So why I couldn't rate beyond 4 can be understood from the fact that we are a country which doesn't produce monthly balance sheets. So if we have accounting system, we have good people taking care of accounting procedures, we should be at least producing monthly balance sheet. And monthly balance sheet includes all 3 statements. One is balance sheet, another is profit and loss, and third one is cash flow sheet. Most of the time we see cash flows on a very monthly, last month cash flow kind of. We don't go to see next 3 months, next 6 months. And I would be very happy to hear from any of you. I think there is some
Bharti ji, if you could mute everybody else.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So friends, I will be very happy to get to know if any of you, today's listener, is preparing balance sheet on a monthly basis. And believe me, this is something miraculous in any accounting system or financial management in SMEs. When we start preparing monthly balance sheet, when we start reviewing it, see, we are a country where SMEs are preparing balance sheet only for the sake of compliances. That too, much beyond March. It is generally prepared in September, October, just to comply with taxation thing, company act rules and regulations, but not for the promoter and management of the company. It is less for the management and promoter of the company and more for compliance purpose. We are a country where SMEs really don't know how to use monthly balance sheet preparation for their better financial management, better cash flow management, better working capital management. So it is very seldom we find that there is one pager to tell a company management that everything related to financial management of the company is absolutely fine. In my experience, I go to every SME I interact and I require one pager MIS, one pager. It should not be floating in multiple sheets, 20, 25 sheets, because that is not manageable. So I go and ask whether we have one pager sheet to get to know whether my company is doing financially well. That I never find. And I try to prepare it for the management in due course. It has a lot of advantages because we can see future clearly. So if we are assessing our current perfectly and the direction we have in terms of financial budget, I think 50% of the problem is over. And rest 50%, of course, will be solved through team. So I have narrated that there are problems. One of the key area, and these are few feedbacks to people attending today's seminar or webinar. In my experience, I have never found that there is any system or structure of calculating what kind of people should be there in finance and accounts. Forget about HODs and other department. As a chartered accountant and as experienced CFO, let me discuss it only for finance and accounts first. And in my experience, there has never been any logic or science to have the basic procedures of having a good quality finance and accounts team in place. For example, I go and ask what should be the JD of a person leading this finance and accounts. And most of the time, finance is equal to accounts. So when we have a system, accounts is something very different from finance function. In accounts, we have bookkeeping, we do many things vis-a-vis analysis of historical data. And in finance is a very forward looking. Of course, fundraising is there, but of course, deployment, repayment, and many more things related to future financial gaps, we need to discover it through financial data or in finance department. So I have seen that the total structure of finance department or finance and accounts department, which ideally should get divided into accounts, tax, MIS, finance, and compliances. So these are subsets of any finance and accounts department. I have seen in many of the cases it to be very intermingled. People don't have idea what amount they should be spending on monthly cost of this finance and accounts or annual cost. Should it be 15% of the total employee cost or 20% or 10%? So these are few things which I found in my experience. And the biggest thing which I observed, many of time we in the business, when I say we, I mean promoter, management, and somebody from finance expertise, we focus generally on monthly cash flow sheets, and at the most we assess profitability on a very macro and gross level. We never drill it down to SKUs and many other things which we should be doing, because that accounting system is not supporting that automatic fetching of data SKU wise. But we never go to understand balance sheet on a monthly basis, which is very critical thing. Understanding a balance sheet, their ratios, what it is telling to management for future correction or future precautions. What is this long term, short term mismatch? When we analyze, we often read in newspaper that banking system is in problem because of long term, short term mismatches. Short term funds being utilized for long term purposes and long term for short term purposes. So there are mismatches. We really, as a in my experience, I found that literacy of the balance sheet, that too on a month on month basis level, is very very poor. And whatever I have counted as uh, feedback to you, probably even 10-20% of effort in this direction would be yielding great and magnificent result. Apart from my observation vis-a-vis current SME accounts and finance thing, I have something to share about the current team structure and how generally promoters view uh, mm, CFOs and head of accounts and head of finance. So most of the time, head of accounts is head of finance is CFO. While as if we want to see clearly, all these things have different connotations. Um, Head of account is someone who is taking care of balance sheet, historical data, MIS presentation vis-a-vis historical data, party reconciliation, taxation, compliances. Believe me, he has many things to do. And because of his training of the mind, he is not that efficient in finance function, which is a very, very forward-looking and strategic function. So in this slide, I should be differentiating that there are two types of professionals we require in our system, and eventually CFO or CFO quality can ensure this blend of quality in finance and accounts team beautifully if given the chance. So I many of the time I see, you can also see on the top of the slide, there are four versions of CFO service. So sometimes we hear it as CFO service. We hear terminology virtual CFO, and then sometimes it's outsourced CFO, and sometimes we hear interim CFO. Friends, all these four terminologies or connotations, they have different meaning altogether. Virtual CFO, when we say now, it feels that as if we are talking about a person who will never come for a meeting or everything will be dealt virtually. So in my perspective, CFO service is very, very different from virtual CFO. 70-80% of it is virtual, but a CFO service can never be a 100% virtual thing, because promoter and its team would want to meet people from CFO service team on a regular interval, monthly, weekly. So in my view, virtual, and when we refer to virtual CFO now, we generally refer services being provided by mostly CAs in practice who are giving in the name of virtual CFO. They are doing the same thing which otherwise is to be done by internal team. So mostly things around compliances, accounting, taxation. So if it is being outsourced or to be virtually done, it is being stamped as virtual CFO. So my only suggestion is that there is a differentiation. CFO services necessarily means that it needs to be provided by person who is coming from a corporate experience and he has been living that position for long, at least for a decade. So how can a CFO provide CFO services unless he has himself been CFO, that too of corporates, right? So please understand the difference between the two. By virtual, if we expect something from virtual CFO, to be coming as a strategic partner, probably that will not fit. There is some noise.
Bharti ji, if you could mute everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now let me define for you what is this outsourced CFO and interim CFO. So in bigger cities like because high quality CFOs are concentrated in bigger cities, outsource or interim CFOs are people who are going to organization on a weekly basis uh, or 2 times a week basis, and they are there to take care of uh, certain specific issues. They are not involved in routine things. I feel that this outsource or interim CFO kind of a thing is less efficient in nature, because here uh, some monthly cash flow is required to take care of the retainership of the high quality person first. Secondly, there are chances, in my experience, there are chances of overlapping goals. So goals are floating, they are changing the goalpost every day, because organization is a very, if we are having some senior person on a retainership basis, whether or not he is coming on a daily basis, we as a promoter feel that every important strategic thing having financial implications should be going to him. In my view, we will not be able to utilize him better in this fashion. Though, so is that CFO services are available in the market, where high quality CFOs are working with the organization for 4 or 5 things in a quarter. Mostly success fees are there is a success fees mechanism, and it is very affordable and understandable by SMEs. So I'll be elaborating on those things. I hope I have given some clarity on different terminologies generally prevalent in the market and what it does connote. I am also author of a book, ICI publication, that is digitally available free of cost. I would request Naman to download it and then circulate to all the members attending today. Right? Probably that will be also helpful to many of the promoter understanding the concept and how they can utilize it.
Sure.
Coming back to the discussion, as I mentioned, uh, there are two aspects: traditional and conventional. And engaging with CFO services person or having a senior finance resource as board advisor to your company is very, very different from outsourcing your accounts and taxation thing. Believe me, the senior person can help you guiding on many finance strategy, business building, and even global opportunities. This slide represents how generally businesses are built and how CFO service or a senior resource can be helping you not only from finance and accounts, but also on different aspects which are there required for business building on a long-term basis. So suppose there is a person and there is a CFO service coming to you and proposing that it will help you business building. So what does that business building means? It means working on, and it's not, CFO service is never about report writing thing. It's being in complete solidarity with promoter and HODs of the team and ensuring execution of the plan. So they are CFO service partner or CFO partner is execution partner. He is there for results. He is not there for reports or preaching or teaching. Most of the time, he does the same thing which he has been doing with his earlier companies as employee of those companies. Here in your case, methodology would be bit different, but the focus would be turnover building, profit building, valuation. Sorry. Okay. There's some difference.
Yeah, Bharti ji, please unmute.
Please, please.
Please mute them again, please. Thank you.
Yeah. So friends, what I'm trying to convey through this slide, that people, process, strategy becomes the core, and this CFO service person or the institution comes to the company for increasing revenue, profit, and valuation. And I should be overemphasizing on valuation because it is least understood part on the part of SME promoters generally, because we have been living a DNA of business building, which I feel because of recent valuation startups thing is now becoming obsolete, and it's a dying model of business building. And we have seen many businesses, you can very well refer whatever, I will not be elaborating much, but you can refer many of new technology companies becoming unicorn 1 billion valuation company in just 4 5 years. And in your segment also, in many manufacturing segments, we have seen 4 generation, 4 decade, 5 decades businesses roaming around 60 70 turnover, and profitability is even less. This becomes a fact when there is a altogether astonishing uh, prospect for the industry. So I think I'm referring to the dichotomy of the opportunity and the gaps. I'll be elaborating in due course what I'm referring to, but uh, there should be a team B in your organization in the form of CFO service, which should be taking care of the gaps and paving way for business team. We have identified who can be your CFO partner, and we have understood the problems vis-a-vis finance and accounts, and even beyond finance and accounts, what is business building and how a CFO, a senior CFO quality person, CFO service person can be contributing. Now let us understand something vis-a-vis SME listing, because this becomes a tool of discovering valuation for the company. We are living in an age where uh, we are more interested in understanding stories around valuation. Recently, a lot of companies have got listed which have never been making profits in the books, but they have been valued more than lakh crore. So this becomes a very, very strange and interesting phenomena. I should not be leaving today's presentation without referring this SMA listing thing and how it can be utilized. In your past conversation on this forum, you have heard Ajay Thakur ji, and one merchant banker, Gaurav Jain from Him Securities. They were emphasizing as to how to discover value through listing and what are the methods and procedures and how they can be helping. But friends, believe me, what I am going to discuss today is very, very interesting. I have already told you, but from different perspective. I have told you that we are a 6 crore MSME by count. So in India, we have this number, and only 650 around approximate. I may not be that exact, but around 650 companies, 660, 670 kind of companies have been listed till date. Or unka bhi valuation, it's more than 40,000 crore. तो केवल BSE की बात बता रहा हूं मैं, 350 कंपनियां के अराउंड हैं, और उनका वैल्यूएशन 40,000 करोड़ है, टोटल मार्केट कैप अगर सारी कंपनियों पे मिलाई जाए. सो दिस इज काइंड ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटी वी हैव. अगर इन 6 करोड़ में से केवल 6,000 कंपनियां लिस्ट कराएं अगले 2 से 5 सालों में, जो आपके नंबर का भी तकरीबन 8 टाइम 9 टाइम, probably we are sitting on humongous growth prospect. And why it has not been happening? So you may be differing or you may be having your opinion, but how a CFO or a chief finance officer sees this problem, I'm narrating all those things in this slide. So probably there has been a gap in the total ecosystem of SME listing. The CFO service has not been there as a prominent execution partner. So it was a good concept understood by the promoter. But even then, Mr. Thakur himself says in many of his conversation that he has already met 35,000 approx promoters in the country, but only 650 listing. So probably why this gap is there, while other people are not coming forward for. Hello. There was. Bharti ma'am, please take care of. There's echo. Taken? Hello? There's echo in my voice. Is it good now?
Yeah, please carry on. We can,
Okay.
no echo has been removed. Yeah.
Yeah. So all those things are listed. I'm listening. Why was it?
Suraj sir, we have checked from our end, so everything is okay.
Okay.
You could mute Mr. CV Ravichandran.
Please put on all of the mute, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Now hello. Yeah. Now it looks good. Yeah. So I have listed out all those things, and probably I see there is good scope of having a CFO quality person in the whole ecosystem, and we can be increasing pace of listing for SMEs. So all those problem, inefficient financial management, balance sheet dealing from the business, because we don't prepare balance sheet, we don't give respect to it on a month-to-month basis. So business building is always dealing from balance sheet, and in the last of the year, we try to capture all the things around the business to put it in balance sheet, and sometimes for many reasons it gets managed. Corporate governance, of course, has been a issue, but it has been streamlining. A lot of efforts on different forum, ministry, government, ease of doing business. So a lot of things are happening around this, and it is being streamlined. There's one input that we have been traditionally a community business, a community where we have been building business from a perspective where we were focusing only on profit. So valuation was not that prominent thing in our earlier business building process. Now it is getting prominence, and there is old school of thought vis-a-vis profit, how it is to be shown, what it is to be shown, what it will yield for the promoter and the business, the company. There is new way of thinking where showing profits are given equal importance, and there is a discussion around valuation. So all in all, there has been a requirement of a person who understands, and he should also be there by side of the promoter to execute it for long term, not only for execution of SME listing. So what I'm proposing is that had there been a person senior enough with good quality to take care of the mismatches, the kind of business building we were doing earlier and the kind of business building and balance sheet building we require in future because of listing. Had there been a senior, mature, good quality CFO coming from a corporate experience, Indian family business experience, along with the promoter, and who commits himself for a long-term association with the promoter and executing everything around this listing and pre-listing, post-listing, and around listing, probably things would have been much, much better. Because promoter, even if he is understanding that there is a value in listing, he has different advisors to him speaking different languages, and nobody is there to reconcile it and take responsibility of execution of it. And believe me, promoters have a lot of things to do on a daily basis. So one of my strongest proposition of the day and the presentation is that if we bring good quality CFO professionals in the form of CFO service or CFO partners for helping company on a long-term basis, including listing of the company, because listing can be a way of discovering valuation for long-term, I think we will be in a better position to list and sustain our company for long-term. Please, there is too much content on the slide. Please do not read it. I will be explaining it. Just focus on whatever I'm saying. So I have explained that there was a requirement. There is a requirement. People in business, promoter in the business are looking forward to interact and to have these good quality people, good quality CFO resource in the team, who comes from a very great background of great and good businesses in terms of volume earlier. But how this whole mechanism will operate, how he will be associated for long term, what kind of mandate will be signed, what kind of fees he will be charging, will there be one person taking care of the whole responsibility, or will there be team? So all these questions coming to your mind probably will get answered in this slide. So first thing first, you must understand that whosoever is coming as a CFO partner or CFO service provider, he will be coming to you as a board advisor. So he is not there as independent director, and there can't be any term like quasi CFO. Although he can work as quasi CFO, but this cannot be a position. So how he will be accommodated as position with the team? He can be accommodated as board advisor to the team, right? Team, when I'm saying team, it includes promoter, HODs, and all the teams in the department. So he will be designated as board advisor. And he is a person who is coming from a big corporate background. He has his aspirations. So rather than working for a bigger companies on a routine basis, he had chosen to work for SMEs. The underlying thing is that he sees a lot of value being built in SMEs, and he also aspires for wealth creation while building wealth for the promoters. So fee will be one part of it, but we, promoter of the company or management of the company, should understand that this kind of person can only be accommodated if we as a promoter understand his aspiration, this CFO quality person's aspiration for wealth creation. So he's coming to build wealth for you, but it's normally prevalent in professional organization. We all know ESOP, sweat equity, and many more things around that. How companies are building wealth and distributing it to different of its employee, vendors, and other people associated with the company for long. Secondly, he's not coming as a service provider to you. He is actually becoming Krishna to all the people in the organization as Arjuna. So this Krishna is coming as a friend, philosopher, and guide. He is He's a coach of the team and not the captain. And there should be absolute clarity on this, because HODs and promoter himself can be captain. This person, this position as a board advisor, he can be only coach. And coach has responsibility of winning tournaments and winning in business as well. And this CFO service is not for transaction, for assignment. Actually, this is a long-term relationship between this CFO service institution, which is having a lot of ex-CFOs coming to this company for building business and the company. So it's a long-term association where both of the organizations, CFO service organization and the company, is seeing long-term value in each other, and they are committed to build wealth and also share it. High quality professionals are coming to SMEs, and they already are knowing that SMEs can't afford conventional fees and conventional payment, which is there in the corporate for high quality professionals. So reasonability and affordability is already there in the mind of the CFO service partner. He knows that uh, initial thing, it should not be linked with the time, hourly fees or weekly fees. SMEs cannot afford it. But of course, what SMEs can afford is a success-based thing. So there is no denial to it. We are doing it with SMEs, and there is a comfort to do that. Execution is focused. So of course, no preaching, teaching, and report making. Uh, and how this execution is tracked, of course, through implementation of sound budgeting system, which is being tracked on a month-on-month basis. So if we have a 12 months plan month on month, and it is being tracked on a monthly basis, and we are taking care of all the gaps for next 12 months, probably that becomes a very enabling thing for the company and the management. And gradually, when we are in tracking habit of the performance budget, financial budget, we tend to prepare this financial budget for 3 years, 5 years in due course. So of course, it takes its time, but we progress from preparing a 3 months budget to 12 months budget, then 3 years budget, then 5 years. And in my experience as CFO, I have seen ability to plan financially becomes the guiding factor, and the only difference between the big company and the not so big company. Of course, quarterly plans are part of the way. CFO services uh, or CFO, high quality CFOs coming to SME, they will be identifying 4 or 5 things for a quarter, and there should be focus on delivery of these 4 or 5 things. And against each delivery, there will be a fee or any compensation mechanism. So it is completely dealing with the time and effort, all on success fee basis or any milestone based fee structure. For example, we all understand success fees when we understand uh, financing part of it. But there can be many things in accounts and finance, and even for revenue or cost management or visit different department, hiring, technology enhancement, ERP implementation, SAP implementation. So small wins are recognized for achieving achieving it, and then fee is associated both with those small wins. I have already explained it, the methodology. We will be identifying quarterly achievables for 3, 4 things, 5 things. Initially, it will be narrow because first 3 months, 6 months are required to absorb data, people, project, relationship, cult. And as soon as we cross these first 2 quarters, probably we will be adding more task for the quarter. And methodology is success fee, which I have already explained it to you. For any greater clarity, we'll be taking it up in a question answer session. Friends, this has been earlier discussion has been vis-a-vis company requirement of a CFO service person, what is the CFO service firm, and how they are doing around it. One thing I should also be telling how these CFO service firms works. They aggregate ex CFOs. Now I'm talking about CFO service firm. So CFO service firm, they tend to aggregate ex CFOs from different industry vertical. They create their initial team as CFOs from a particular vertical. For example, if Arth needs to do any CFO service for any of plastic exporter or plastic manufacturing company, it is imperative on our part to bring some good quality ex-CFO from the domain. So it's a verticalized management consulting. So good quality from the domain who has been with plastic manufacturing, good brands, Supreme, Nilkamal. There are many good brands. You all are aware of it. So good quality CFOs should be coming from those companies who are having decade or 2 decades experience of business building with the promoter, preferably at least 1 year CFO experience with those kind of good companies. They are coming as a first team to the company. And when I say business building cannot be restricted to only finance capability. So this CFO service thing starts from a CFO capability, but gradually you will see that other capabilities also gets added. For example, this board advisor, the CFO service person or CFO person, ex-CFO person becomes first board advisor, and gradually the same kind of resource will get added from HR capability, from IT capability, and most of the time it will be done under due discussion of promoter and this CFO person. Because when this CFO service firm is committing for long-term business building, it should also be ensuring a team B vis-a-vis HR capability, IT capability, operation capability, and business development capability as well. So I hope I have made the whole structure understandable by you. We'll be taking a few questions during question and answer session. But let me tell you, we should not be summing up today's discussion without having action points. So let me propose these two as action point for everyone who is serious enough to understand and serious enough to proceed for making improvements in their company. So first thing first, meet one ex-CFO. So my again precaution is that please do not go for the term virtual CFO. As I mentioned earlier, only ex-CFO, in my view, I may be wrong in some ways, but in my view, only ex-CFOs with at least a decade experience can understand this whole thing and can be of help and value to the company. So meet one ex-CFO providing CFO services. This becomes one first action point. And second action point I am proposing, try to discover one pager MIS for assessing your current financial management. Ask anybody who is senior enough in your team, your auditor, your tax consultant, your finance consultant even. If you don't know any CFO service around you, or you haven't met any senior CFO working for SMEs in this model, ask your existing auditor, tax consultant, your account head. He should be providing you one pager MIS to reflect on the quality of financial management. What should be the barometer? How you should be understanding that your company is working well vis-a-vis financial management. So business, you are quite hopeful. The industry, everything around macroeconomics is great, but what it should you do, what is there in the MIS you should be looking at to understand it fully well, that your business is managed financially very, very well. So this is around Arth Capital. We are working across India, and through associates, we are working in some other